So without further ado, to let everybody know, the webinar is being recorded, and this is my little spiel. If anybody doesn't know, first of all, welcome. I'm Nancy Schaefer, and I'm the president of the Live Events Coalition. And today I'm so excited to welcome you all to a conversation with the SBA regarding EIDL loans. A huge thank you to Ronnie Anderson, Mike Barretto, and the Philly LEC Coalition for coordinating today's webinar. We truly appreciate it. As we all talk on a regular basis, we are all in this together. As you know, our mission is to be a resource for the industry and to navigate COVID relief and opportunities. And today is going to be a great conversation. However, before I turn this over, I'm going to go through a few things. First of all, as attendees, you have two buttons on your Zoom screen at the bottom. You have a Q&A and you have a chat. For any questions that you have, please put them in the Q&A. And the host, which will be Ronnie and Whitney, will monitor those and make sure that the panelists get them. Some answers may be responded with a text and some will be answered live. The chat box just used to be able to chat with panelists and attendees or privately with other attendees. But please remember to put your questions in the Q&A function because otherwise we may miss them and I don't want that to happen. Now, just a few disclaimers before we get started, and these are important. Please be kind and understanding to others. Remember, we're a nonpartisan group and we ask that you respect that. Please avoid self or company promotion on coalition webinars. Please remain nonpartisan. Please continue, and this one is really important to me, to support one another in our industry through this tough time. And it's the policy of the Live Events Coalition to comply in all respects with federal and state antitrust laws. Discussions of any matters relating to competition among our attendees or relating to practices that may restrain trade with third parties are not permitted. These prohibited subjects include pricing, allocating territories, boycotts, or any other statements that may be construed as anti-competitive. Yes, we talked to a lawyer, guys. And finally, please note that while the coalition members may offer ideas and advice, we are not legal or financial experts, and we advise you to reach out to your own lawyers, accountants, bankers, or business managers for expert opinions and advice. With that, it is now my great pleasure to turn it over to Ronnie Anderson, who will welcome our panelists and our amazing guest. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nance. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that this is valuable to you and gives you the answers that you're seeking and that those lifelines that are still available to so many before our government figures out what's next. I want to introduce many of our LECs from around the country. We have Andy Klosterman from Colorado, Sharon Nicholson from Connecticut, Michael Barretto from Philadelphia, Whitney in DC, Nancy in DC, and our special guest of honor with all the answers you're looking for, Kathy Cook, who is the Public Affairs Specialist and Acting Supervisor of the U.S. Small Business Association Administration. Kathy, I thank you so much for being here. She has some great information for you guys. Unfortunately, she's having some problems with her web cam, but is coming through with all of her information otherwise, and we do have some slides to share with you as well. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to you, Kathy. Take it away.
I was going to say good afternoon, small businesses, but since we have a member in Colorado, I have to go good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I am with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Assistance out of Atlanta, Georgia. I have over 30 years with the Office of Disaster Assistance. We make disaster loans to individuals, meaning homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofits in the event of floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, everything but blight, I think. And of course, COVID. So the subject and the topic we're going to talk about here is the economic injury disaster loans for COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus. And if we can put up the slide, I want to take you through first the process of applying, whether or not you've applied. Hopefully I'll mention some little tidbits that will help you understand the process that you might have gone through and that might have affected your ability to get the loan or not. How to apply. If you are a small business or a nonprofit organization, including faith-based organizations and agriculture businesses, you can apply. And you simply go to sba.gov and apply for the coronavirus economic injury disaster loan. There are many questions on a streamlined application, and it is helpful to have information ahead of applying. What you should have is your latest tax return and your banking information. And when I say banking information, we're going to ask you the name of your bank, the bank account number, the routing number. We're going to also ask you the legal name of your business. If you don't know the EIN for your business, you should get that ready. If you don't know the Social Security number of the primary members of the business, you should have that ready. SBA has created a streamlined application for COVID-19. And what I mean by that is normally when you apply for a disaster loan, we ask for business documents such as federal tax return, balance sheet, profit and loss statement, monthly sales, schedule of liabilities, personal financial information, and other documents as the loan process continues. For the economic injury disaster loans under COVID, we're asking you to have these things ready, but all you need to do is enter the information in the streamlined application. Be very careful. The name of the business, if you are a sole proprietor, the name of the business is your name. So if I'm a sole proprietor, I would put Kathy Cook as the name of the business and doing business as Kathy Cook Florist Limited. The reason for that is the system that SBA uses to process these loans have to match information that is already established. When we look at your bank account information, the banking information must match the business name as it is shown on the application. Your tax ID must be valid with the IRS. Even your phone number gets checked against records. All of these things can make a difference as to whether your application moves forward through the process or stays in a queue waiting for correction. All right, so we've got our documents ready. We put in our name, our address, and we put in information that will help the system pull your credit. It's a hard pull. The credit will be pulled, and SBA uses a credit score to approve the application. I cannot tell you this credit score because one, it's proprietary, and two, I don't know it. They didn't tell me. So let's say everything's fine. You've got your things in order. You've entered the system. Your credit score is good. The next thing is eligibility. What do I mean by eligibility? Are you a business that was in operation prior to February 1st, 2020? If you just started a business, I'm sorry, you are not eligible. If you closed your business, you're not eligible. We are talking about businesses that were in existence prior to February 1st, 2020. Why February 1st? Because we gave that date, an arbitrary day before that, as the start of the coronavirus, or as we say, COVID-19. Another thing to be eligible is that you have to be in a declared area. Guess what? SBA declared the whole United States, including the U.S. territories, as a disaster area. So you've already gotten that component. If you've got good credit, you were in existence before February 1st, and you're somewhere in the U.S. or U.S. territories, then you are initially eligible. The system will move through and it asks you certain questions, such as, what are your gross sales for the 12 months prior to the incident date? That means the start of the disaster. So what we're asking for is the gross sales for the 12 months prior to January 31st, 2020. Now, most people are just going to put in the annual sales for 2019, and that is A-OK. No problem. The second blank asks for the cost of goods sold for the 12 months prior to the disaster, meaning prior to January 31st, 2020. If you do not have a cost of goods sold, skip it. We have many people. Probably the most common would be taxi cab and limo drivers. Speaking to you people in New York, a lot of limos, a lot of taxi cabs, a lot of Uber drivers. They don't have cost of goods sold. They don't have a product that they're manufacturing and that they are going to resell. They're not a type of business that has cost of goods sold. All of their income must be reported, but everything else is an expense, not a cost, because they're not selling a good. All right. There's another blank in this section, and it says to put the gross rents lost. If you are not applying because you have rental property and you're losing rent, you rent out apartment buildings, you rent out a house, skip that question. The next question asks if you are a farm, agriculture, or nonprofit organization to put in your sales for or revenue for the past 12 months. If you're not an agriculture business, you're not a farm, you're not a nonprofit, skip it. This is a big problem. For some reason, a lot of applicants feel compelled to put something in each blank. So if you put your gross sales are $200,000 and your cost of goods sold are $200,000, and then your rental losses are $200,000, and then your sales for last year for nonprofit or revenue, sales or revenue for nonprofit or agriculture, 200,000. Boy, that just messes up the whole computer, and they're like, what? And initially, if the sales and the cost of goods sold are the same, that means you don't make any money. So we will decline you because you don't have any economic injury, because you were not a profitable business. Many businesses have been declined because of these errors. That's why it's important to have a copy of your tax return, the latest tax return, to your side as you're filling this application out, so that you can put the revenue and the cost of goods sold or the rental losses or whatever it's asking for in the correct spots. Another reason that people have confusion is because they're not paying attention to, when they answer the question, what is your type of business? And there's a drop down arrow. And what is your business industry? There are not many, but there are a few types of businesses that are not eligible for economic injury disaster loans. One is real estate developers, a speculative activity, gambling activities. When you have a casino and over 30% of your revenue is from gambling. I had an individual, and in this spot where it says the type of business, he put photography, and the business entity, he put adult entertainment. We also don't lend to people who do pornographic materials. So by him not paying attention to the type of business and the industry, he cut himself out of consideration, and the loan was automatically declined. Another situation occurs when we ask you, are you a U.S. citizen or not? If you answer no, that doesn't mean that you can't get a loan. We can make loans to people who are here as long as they're here legally. Legally. So sometimes the application would be declined because the information in the application itself is insufficient to make a decision. We need more information. So in the case of a person who is not a U.S. citizen, we would say you're not eligible because we need additional information. And we will ask them to provide something such as a permanent resident card. Once they submit that with a request for reconsideration, we've resolved that issue. So there's not a problem. These loans, the economic injury disaster loans for COVID-19, are unique in that you can borrow up to $25,000 without pledging collateral. That's as good as a credit card. You don't have to put up anything. But if it's over $25,000, you have to pledge collateral. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't pledge my house. I can't pledge my business building. What the heck? I thought this was supposed to help my business. The good news is any loan amount, $150,000, $100,000, up to $200,000. The collateral is everything but real estate. Let me say that again. Collateral is everything but real estate. That means that we're going to take a UCC, which is called a Uniform Commercial Code lien, on your machinery and equipment, your furniture and fixtures, your inventory, your leasehold improvements, but not your real estate. And you say, I don't understand. What is a UCC? If you have a car and you purchased it and you didn't pay for the car, you have a loan on it, that lien is the same thing that is UCC filing. It means it's a lien on other than real estate. Okay? All right, so you just know that SBA is not going to take collateral unless your loan is over $200,000. And currently the loans are maxed out at $150,000. All right, so we go through the process, and we're a nonprofit, and we're like, wait a minute, it asks for the percentage of business. Well, you can't put a percent, but you should be able to put the people that are a part of the nonprofit organization. And you must include at least one person as a primary point of contact. And SBA is going to request that that one person provide their social security number, and SBA is going to pull credit on that person. We are not going to decline the nonprofit for any problems with credit, but it is something that we have to use to authenticate the nonprofit is a viable organization. We have to have somebody that's going to be responsible for being the principal person taking care of the business in regard to the loan. If you are a partnership, you need to include the percentage that would make at least 81% of the ownership of the business, the same way with a corporation. And be very, very, again, careful on the name of the business that you put in as opposed to the doing business as. Some of the information we ask for is, again, about the banking. What is your bank name? What is the account number? What is the routing number? If I'm a sole proprietor and my bank account is in Kathy Cook, and I put the name of the business, Kathy Cook Florist Limited, It doesn't match. There's a problem. We cannot authenticate or verify with the automated clearinghouse that we have a verified and authenticated bank account. We have had thousands of people who have not paid attention when they're putting in the banking information. They have put in the incorrect account, the incorrect bank name. Banks change names. I have a bank account with SunTrust that's been bought out now by Truist. But by habit, I might have put SunTrust in there. The routing numbers are different. Some banks do not participate with the automated clearinghouse. Some people put the information regarding debit cards or regarding different e-banks in the system. If that particular lending institution or bank does not work through the automated clearinghouse, then SBA will not be able to disperse the funds. It's just that simple. So I would recommend before you apply that you call your bank and say, hey, I'm getting ready to apply for an economic injury disaster loan with SBA for the COVID-19 situation. Can you verify that this account goes through the automated clearinghouse? Is this the correct routing number I should use? Is this the correct account number I should use? And surprisingly, sometimes in different banks, even Banks of America or just any of the banks, sometimes the routing numbers are different, even though you have a check right in front of you. So there are all kinds of things that happen through the cycle of putting the information in the system that causes the system to say, uh-oh, there's a problem, we have to decline the loan until we get the correct information. All right, so let's say everything's good. All right, nothing has stopped us. We've gone through and we put in our name and address and our business name is correct. We put in the tax ID number, the social security number, that's correct. We answered the questions correctly. What are the 12 months of gross sales prior to the disaster? We put in the cost of goods sold if that's appropriate, or the revenue for the nonprofit or the agriculture business, or the rental losses. We've completed all that. We put in our type of business and the business entity. We put in the number of employees that we have. We've answered everything. So the system goes through, and every time that the information works and it can be verified, then it continues and continues and continues. The system will use the information and will calculate essentially what is 6 months of gross revenue or gross sales. And that's kind of what your loan is going to be. And we will send you an email and we'll say, come to the portal using this link and look at this proposed loan amount and decide whether or not you're going to accept it or not. Let's suppose that we are the business, we come to the portal and we see an amount of $75,000. If you are a profit business, your interest rate will be 3.75%. If you are nonprofit, your interest rate will be 2.75%. Your loan will be stretched out as far as 30 years. Your first payment will not be due until 1 year from the date of the promissory note. So if you say 30 years, that's 360 months minus 12, then 348, that's going to be the number of payments. So you look in there and it says $75,000 at 3.75%, and you say, Well, she said I could borrow $25,000 and not have collateral. Maybe I only want 25,000. And then you say, but then she told me they're not going to take my house. They're not going to take my business building. They're just going to put a lien on my business contents, let's say, or other assets. I think I only need 50,000. Then you can elect just to get 50,000. So you can slide the bar however you want. But what you want to do is really start out with more instead of starting out with less. Because if you accept a lower loan amount, then what's going to happen is if you need more, you are going to have to request it. You're going to have to provide a tax return, profit and loss statement, monthly sales, balance sheet, schedule of liabilities, personal financial statements, and show how you've already spent the money and have somebody analyze all that and approve your loan and prepare new loan closing documents. Whereas if you take the amount being offered, because we don't know how long coronavirus or COVID-19 is going to last, and then as things progress, if your sales return to normal and you don't need the balance of the loan, you return it. You send it in, and then you won't owe as much. Okay? Now, how does disbursement happen? All right, you've picked your loan amount, and so eventually your application will go through a queue to a loan officer. The loan officer and a legal department will prepare loan closing documents. And they will send you an email saying, come to the portal, sign those loan closing documents. One of the loan closing documents is a promissory note. It is typical for any type of loan whenever you borrow, and it will show you the amount you borrowed, the interest rate, how much your payments are, for how long, and a whole bunch of other legal language. And you will digitally sign it. Then there's going to be a document called a loan authorization and agreement. That document is going to pretty well tell you the rules of the road. That's kind of like a contract. It'll tell you you're expected to spend this money on working capital, working capital that is needed as a result of the COVID-19. It'll tell you if it's over $25,000, here's your collateral, a security interest in machine and equipment, inventory, and all those kind of things. It'll tell you who's supposed to sign the loan. It'll tell you if you default on the loan, what happens. It'll tell you if you commit fraud, what happens. It gives you all the rules and regulations. If you have a corporation or a partnership, or your loan is $150,000, there might be other documents such as a certificate as to lobbying. There might be something that requires you to provide information later on. But essentially, if you sign those two documents and return them back to the portal, then they're going to review it. And if everything's good, they will make a disbursement from the U.S. Treasury. These don't go through banks, into your bank account. So many people are not getting their money because the bank account information is incorrect. It doesn't have the name Kathy Cook on it. It has Mary Catherine Cook. You forgot that you put the bank account that way. You forgot that your corporation has a period after corp. You forgot that there's an ampersand instead of the word and. These things make a difference and will cause you not to get a disbursement. What happens in that case? You have to cure the problem. You have to write a letter to SBA, email it, provide the corrected bank information. And most often that entails us getting a voided copy of a check or a letter from the bank or some document saying this is my legal business name. So those types of things happen. But we're talking about positivity. We're talking about you applied. Your credit score was good. You have a viable business. You are a U.S. citizen. You agreed to take a loan over $25,000. You correctly signed the loan closing documents and you got the money. You are going to get a billing statement every single month. And you say, wait a minute. You told me the payment's not due for 1 year. You know what happened when we didn't give you a billing statement for 1 year? People thought the government forgot that you owed that loan. Not true. So we give you a billing statement every single month to make sure that you know it's upcoming. So that is essentially how you get the loan. Now, I want to talk just a little bit more about the decline reasons. And then I want to take questions. Again, the reasons for decline can come about because you had incorrect information about your banking, or you put the wrong financial information on. Remember, we're not asking you to send us copies of your tax returns. We're not asking for any financial documents, nothing. We're depending 100% on what you entered in the system. So if you put that your gross sales were $200,000 and your cost of goods sold were $200,000, it doesn't look like you have any needs. Your business wasn't viable. Or if you're saying you're not a U.S. citizen, then we need some more information. Or you put down a type of business that's not eligible. All of these things will result in a letter back to you, and they will provide you with an overall reason for the decline, and you will have up to 6 months to ask for reconsideration. So no is not no. Sometimes no means you gotta give us some more information. One of the things that happen is sometimes people indicate that they have been on parole or probation, or they're currently under indictment, and they have some kind of character issue. When that happens, we're going to decline you for the loan due to what we call character issues. And all that means is we've got to find out what was the offense, where did it occur, when did it occur. So once you provide information we request regarding that, and we get a clearance either from management or an FBI background check, we may be able to approve the loan. Sometimes you will get a decline and it again will say economic injury not substantiated. That's those times when you have entered financial information and maybe you didn't even put numbers. You're like, are you silly? I've been affected by COVID. My income is zero. And they didn't pay attention to the fact that the question or the statement said the gross sales prior to the disaster. And they put in the sales today. Well, that would be a decline for unsubstantiated economic injury. So what you would need to do is submit a copy of the latest tax return and let us use the correct figures and reprocess the loan. Sometimes the loan is declined because you didn't come to the portal and select a loan amount. Maybe you, and this is a real story, you and your partner, it's like, I don't want the government knowing our business. I don't want to borrow a loan. I don't want that much. I want more than that. All kinds of fights happen with these partners and they couldn't agree. You have 60 days to come and pick a loan amount from the offer. You can't get more than the offer, but from the offer. These two guys couldn't figure it out. And so what happened? We declined the loan because they changed their plans. We said, hey, you can't decide, we can't go forward. But what actually happens, we give them a decline letter saying they changed their plans, they failed to proceed, and they still have 6 months, up to 6 months from that date, come together and say, okay, we're going to be good, we agree, and please let us go back to the portal. The same thing happens with the loan closing documents. I don't really know how this one happened, but this guy decided to sell part of his heating and air company to another person right in the middle of this application. There wasn't a new business applying. There was an old business applying. So they couldn't sign the documents because the new business was after February and everything that was in the system was incorrect. So they couldn't sign the loan closing documents. We had to say you couldn't proceed. We give them a letter. They have up to 6 months to reapply. If you have delinquent child support, that's a reason to get declined. Then there is one particular thing that is the worst thing I'll admit that SBA has tried to do. A catch-all. And the letter will say you're declined because of unverifiable information. And you call up and you go, well, what is unverifiable information? What is it? And nobody knows. We have received 12 million applications. 12 million applications. We processed more PPP and economic injury disaster loans in 14 days than we had disaster loans in 14 years. We are scrambling, folks, and we are trying to streamline the system. So when it's unverifiable information, kind of think, was there something when I went into the system that I didn't fill out based on Kathy Cook's presentation? I don't remember putting in any sales. I don't remember answering that question about how many employees I have. I don't remember. I don't think I used the business bank account. I think I put in our personal account. All these types of things can be unverifiable information. And so, you know, when you contact our customer service, we're going to work through with you to try to find out what that is and resolve that. But a lot of times it's because missing or inadequate information. And again,
Kathy, I think Michael on our team actually has a story that he'd like to share about that might resonate with a lot of the questions that we've received.
Well, let's
is that
do
okay?
it. Absolutely.
Andy, thanks for putting me on the spot, but no problem. Thanks.
Sorry.
Early
Hey,
in the process.
blame Andy, not me.
No worries. Mike Brady here from Metropolis Patch Logistics out of Philadelphia. In the beginning, when everything was coming undone and everyone was running for PPP and EIDL loans, I took a stance that my company was in a position where we didn't need it immediately. So we waited on the application process, waited all the way until about the first week of June, before I actually said they still have funding left, and you want to know, it'd be nice to, you know, have some reserves in case of a rainy day with everything that's going on. And, you know, I applied, and probably about 45 days later, I got a denial letter. I went for reconsideration. After several attempts at going for reconsideration, finally, back in the first week of October, I got a letter stating that they have opened up my file again for review. At that point, I've been going back and forth, and when Ronnie had bought the idea of communicating with Kathy and having this program, I thought it was amazing. And the fact that she had actually found a human living being that we could communicate with beyond the emails and the obtuse messaging going back and forth, I started to have some conversations with Kathy on the side with my plight. It's an extremely challenging situation. Kathy had mentioned to us earlier that literally they were given all the information to roll out loans with 3 days notice. Correct, Kathy?
Absolutely.
So imagine the millions of applications that have gone through not just her desk, but the whole SBA's desk, and then force feeding it out to the banks, and the banks coming back to them and saying terms and not sure what terms are real or what's not. It was a very complicated process, just like anything else that we're dealing with in 2020, of course, right? So needless to say, at this point right now, I'm at a point where I'm going to be dealing with an SBA counselor, because quite honestly, I wasn't expecting to need the loan when I applied. Now that I'm in a situation where we're 9.5 months in, and you're as a business owner, you're supposed to have a 6-month cushion. Well, my burn rate through that 6-month cushion's gone. And it'd be nice to be able to have that extra money in place to support my business as I continue to stay in business or attempt to stay in business. So now I'm kind of in a situation where, I'm confused. And a lot of things that Kathy had brought to light today in communications prior, as well as just on this webinar now, had made it really well known that, if you've applied for a EIDL loan and been declined, and you're looking for reconsideration, there are plenty of holes and missed chances that you might have misfiled your application, which I know I did. And I'm hoping when I get a counselor in place from the SBA that can assist me, walking me through this, that I could be able to enlighten myself at the same time, hopefully get to the point to have, the Treasury deposit some funds into my account. So it's one of those things where, it's not just our industry that's feeling the pain of this. Kathy brought to light that there's thousands upon thousands of businesses that are dealing with this issue because the filings weren't correct. So I'm hoping that, if anything is brought to light out of this, it's that, we're small business. We're not multinational companies here. We might do work and have clients that are multi-million-dollar companies and so forth, but we're in this together here, and it's a challenge. And no one wants to know more than anything else that 2020 is nothing less than a challenge every day. So with this process and what Kathy has given to us today, I'm sure there's going to be questions and specific questions. Kathy is here today to talk about the EIDL loan, the emergency recovery. She can give partial, if limited, light on PPP and the forgiveness part, but that's as far as she can really go. So if there's questions, by any means, put them in a chat, or the moderators will go through that. But I was put on a spot by Andy. Thanks, Andy, of course. But I mentioned it earlier when we were talking. I mean, my story is the same as so many others. I've heard from a friend of mine that has a jiu-jitsu practice in the city of Philadelphia, and he and his partner applied in March, and they just got funded last week. So and Kathy had mentioned to us before, the average SBA processing time is about 6 months. Now, when you hear emergency, and you heard in the beginning when people applied and they were getting approved right away, you would think, oh, I'm going to get approved right away as well too. Well, I think I'm safe to say this, Kathy, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think the SBA put the brakes on a lot of the approvals after the first wave, because there was a lot of quote unquote scrupulous individuals applying for EIDL loans that shouldn't have gotten them, correct?
Well, of course, there's some fraud in the system, but let me just correct. I don't really have an average processing time. The 6 months I mentioned is the amount of time you have from the date that you were declined to ask for reconsideration. Some applications move through light and quick, and some others different. And again, it's a learning process for all of us. it is not our intention to make this complicated. We really did try to, as an agency, streamline this. And for anybody, you know, Mike is working with a counselor. The small business development centers are offices that are in almost all colleges and universities. They're partially paid by the state economic development programs and partially paid by SBA. These counselors can help you apply. They can help you with your reconsideration. When you ask for reconsideration, we're asked for more financial information than we did initially. So we have people, to help you, and we again don't want to make it tough, but sometimes they're, you know, the sheer volume and the fact that certain things like the banking information that we didn't expect to have so much problem with, and people filing multiple applications because they didn't hear. So all these things have kind of exacerbated the system. But at this time, I think, Mike, if we can, you know, if we have some other business owners that want to ask their questions, let's see what we can.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Mike. I think that's commonality among many people in our industry. I'll say from my brief experience, I had the opposite experience. So I tried to apply right after COVID hit. Every single page took 15 minutes to load, it froze out and never worked. So I just said, screw it. I applied again in August. It took me about an hour and I got my money in like 2 days. So the experience was drastically different. There's a lot of questions on here about forgiveness and I think in relation to PPP. So Kathy, would you mind commenting real quick on what part of an EIDL loan could be forgiven? And then I'd love to speak a little bit about what the LEC is doing in regards to some of that, because there could be a legislative change that could affect it. It's not there currently. Does that make sense, Kathy? Oh, did we lose? Is she there?
She's not muted. Kathy, are you there?
Uh-oh.
We scared her away.
I think we lost her.
So from what we were, while she's coming back, from what we were speaking about before the call, the forgiveness portion of an EIDL. So I guess there was, okay, yeah, she'll probably log back on. The forgiveness portion, there was up to a $10,000 originally, do you guys remember what it was called? A $10,000 loan that you didn't really need a lot of information to get. And that was a fully forgivable loan.
It was the grant portion of it, but then
the grant.
Then it changed to $1,000 per employee.
Yes, yeah. So then they said they were running out of money with that program, so it changed to $1,000 per employee. So my understanding of it, and Kathy could correct me when she gets back, is that only up to $10,000 could currently be forgiven on an EIDL loan under that part of the program. I will say from the advocacy standpoint, Sharon and I are on the government affairs of LEC as well. And Ronnie's on all of our calls as well. We are advocating very strongly that severely impacted industries like the special events industry in the United States are able to forgive EIDL loans and for the EIDL loan amounts to be increased. However, Kathy would not be able to allow our industry to do that. She simply does not have the power to do so. At the legislative move that we're trying to make by the advocacy work that we're doing. So I think that should answer a lot of the questions, but please let me know if there's more clarification needed on forgiveness.
Kathy is popping back in right now. She just called me. She was worried she couldn't get logged back in. So I was kind of worried. I was about to be her clairvoyant, where she's going to tell me the answer to turn back to the person. So hopefully she can answer for herself. So Kathy,
my goodness. I'm so sorry about that. With the economic injury disaster loans, at the very beginning, there were two components of the loan. there was the economic injury disaster loan, and there was something called an emergency advance, which was called a forgivable loan. That loan was initially $1,000 per employee up to a maximum of $10,000. If you did not apply for the PPP, whatever you got for the emergency advance, whether it was $1,000 up to $10,000, that was a forgivable loan. Otherwise, some people refer to as a grant, and it doesn't have to be paid back. But do not have any expectation that the economic injury disaster loan is going to be forgiven. It is not. It is a disaster loan, and by law, disaster loans cannot be forgiven. The PPP loans are totally different. They are designed for forgiveness. They are designed for forgiveness because the business owner was supposed to use at the end of it up to 65% of the money for payroll and the rest of the money for mortgage interest, insurance, and other things. And when you fill out your form asking for forgiveness, that should be granted. But those are two separate loans under this COVID situation. The PPPs are through the bank, and you have to complete a form and ask for the forgiveness, and they're monitoring how you spent the money. Did you spend it on payroll the way you were supposed to? And you got some additional funds for some working capital. For the economic injury disaster loans, only the $1,000 per employee, that forgivable loan, emergency advance, that's the only part that you do not have to pay back. If you got a PPP loan, then the forgivable loan from SBA's disaster assistance will be taken in consideration, because that's a grant and the PPP is going to turn into a grant. And so they may duplicate each other. And I know that's technical and hard. So if you have questions regarding it, call 800-659-2955. If you have an economic injury disaster loan and you got some emergency advance funds per employee. We cannot address the questions really from the PPP program because those are operated and offered through a bank. All right, we have something next, Andy?
I think Ronnie's gonna.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in real quick. And just go, we have so many questions that have come in. So I just want to jump in and then we'll just go through the list of them. You've already spoken to several of them, but one that is coming up a couple times is whether or not there is a recommended deadline to apply, and will there be availability going into 21?
Okay, currently the deadline is the end of the year. However, as you may have heard on the news, that Congress is looking at passing another stimulus package, and depending on what results from that, there may be an opportunity for SBA to get more funds and for there to be an extension of the deadline. So I would say, as Mike would in marketing, stay tuned. But for right now, the end of the year.
Okay, very good. And just, I think that the whole thing about the name and the bank thing and the LLC, we have a couple questions that are around that relative to, can a single member LLC apply if that is what your business name is and that's what you get paid under your LLC name? That is what you should be applying under, correct, Kathy?
Absolutely. And again, what I would do is just look at your bank records. Don't put your personal banking account information. It should be your business account, and pay attention to how it's structured. However that account is on the bank account, that's probably the way you should put the name of the business on the application.
Great. There were some questions about the restrictions around how you can spend the EIDL. Is that different from the PPP? I know you spoke to that a little bit.
Okay, we are a little more flexible in how you spend the money, in that we don't require you to use it for payroll. It's for working capital needs. What that means is your lease or mortgage payment on your business, your quarterly taxes, the insurance on the business, the health insurance on the employees. If you have, let's say you are a restaurant and your payables include paying a vendor for linens, you have, to get new pots and pans and whatever. All of those things that you would normally use the revenue from your sales for is what you can use the economic injury loan funds for. What you cannot use them for is you cannot pay off fixed debt. The Kathy Cook Flower Shop has a van and delivers flowers all the time, makes a monthly payment. And let's say I owe $5,000. I can't take the $5,000 out of this loan and pay it off. That's not what it's for. It's to make the regular payments that you would have been able to make had the disaster not occurred. You cannot expand your business. But everything else that you would normally use your sales for is pretty well included in what we expect you to do with the money.
Okay, wonderful. And I think that answers a couple of other questions relative to that. So in regards to that money, we have some people who have already received some EIDL loan amounts and now know that they're going to need in excess of what they've already received. What are their chances of being able to receive more or reapply for?
Okay. You do have the ability to ask for an increase. Currently, because we have limited funds available, we're not entertaining anything above $150,000. But if you got a loan for, let's say, $50,000 and you need more funds, then you would write us a request for an increase. And this time, we can't just rely on a streamlined application. We need tax return, the SBA, the IRS Form 4506. We need to get your balance sheet and your profit and loss and know how you spent your funds. And then we will process your request for an increase. So it can be done. And you can, again, call our customer service, 800-659-2955, and they should be able to either send you an email or tell you over the phone, again, what I said, the financial information you need. But at a minimum, send an email to one of the email addresses on the left-hand side of your screen and a recent tax return and the IRS Form 4506T off of our website and ask for the increase at a minimum.
Okay, wonderful. I have one question here relative when you say gross rental loss, what do you mean exactly?
We have different landlords. We have commercial properties. We have people that just have rental houses. And so it depends on how the business reports their income. If you are reporting on a Schedule E, just look at the line that matches the request on our application. It'll tell you, and it'll be the same language that you have. Sometimes it is a net because they're still trying to build apartments, and sometimes it's just a gross amount. So you just look at your federal tax return, Schedule E, and you will be able to match the financial information from that to the streamlined loan application.
Wonderful. Now, this money, does it need to be spent in a strict period of time like the PPP?
We actually don't have it as strict as they do. Your loan authorization agreement, it's kind of the contract between SBA and you, provides information regarding how long you have to spend it. But it's not forever, but certainly you have, I think, 2 years, up to 2 years to even ask for an increase. So you've got a lot of time to use the money. What we don't expect people to do is get the loan, stick the money in the bank, and say, well, I didn't really have any losses. We'll just see how it goes. You know, we expected to, you know, that you applied because you needed it. But there's no, you know, you have to do it today or 6 months, because we're not asking you to pay for a certain amount of weeks of something or a certain amount of payroll. So it's different for each situation. Some people have spent it up and some people still have some funds because the COVID situation is continuing.
Okay, very good. Again, people, please put all your questions into the Q&A box, and I will go through them and ask them of Kathy and hopefully address them all. We have a couple questions regarding prepayment. Are there any penalties for prepayment, Kathy?
There are no prepayment penalties, none whatsoever, which is good. And again, when I say things, you'll hear different things from different people at SBA because we all have a different way of reviewing things and seeing things. What I would recommend is that you don't pay the loan off until you're sure that, you know, you're through the COVID and your business has been restored. Because we had a lot of people and they're like, I just don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt, you know, and they're sending a lot of the money back. And then once you've done that, once you've paid the loan off, you can't get another one. You can't, unless there's some new program. So I would say take your time to evaluate your needs. You know, put your financial house in order. Look at your tax returns, look at your profit and loss, talk to your accountant or CPA or partner or whomever, and see what's coming forward, you know, quarterly taxes or something. The reason I say that is because, again, you can't get a second COVID loan. The other reason is these are offered at simple interest, which means that the interest only accumulates on the principal balance, not interest on principal and interest like all other loans do. The other reason is you have 12 months before you have to start making that first payment. So I would say take your time before you consider it. Now, let's say I got a $50,000 loan and I want to pay $10,000 back because I don't need it. You can, but next month you need to make your same regular payment. It doesn't count as payments for the next 10 years. It works the same way as your mortgage does. You know, I thought when I first bought a house, I thought, oh, I'm going to pay up, you know, like the next 10 payments. And then I found out next month the payment is still due. It just pays the loan out sooner. So no prepayment penalties. The only cost to apply is the time it takes to complete the paperwork. And if the loan is over $25,000, we will deduct a $100 fee just to file the UCC or the lien on your collateral. So it's really not coming to us. It's just a courtesy thing that we do. We file the lien, and the cost that it that's incurred with the county or the city is something that we will deduct from the loan.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Here's a great question. This person applied for the EIDL, was approved, but did not take it. Can they reactivate that loan
They can.
They can.
Yep. If you canceled the loan, we give you that same 6 months from the date of the letter in which to say, oh, I changed my mind. I want to, and we call it reinstate the loan. So, read the letter when you canceled the loan, and it'll tell you, you have 6 months from the date of this letter.
Okay, and again, they could even ask to increase that loan amount, correct?
Yes.
Okay, one more
And
question from
like
the
I
same
said,
person.
at a minimum, be prepared to send that request into this either email box on the left-hand side with, and this time they're going to ask for the most recent tax return and the IRS Form 4506. That's just one of those things that initially wasn't asked for, but if you come back in, we have to have it.
Okay, now going to those questions about tax returns. Our industry was so devastated this year, and people who are trying to get loans have to show past years because this year really has nothing to show. When I have somebody asking that they were telling that they've been denied because of this whole process, especially newer businesses that don't really have those past returns to show, do they have any recourse? If they don't have a lot to show from 18 or 19?
The newer business is not being declined because they don't have tax returns. The newer business is being declined because they weren't in business before COVID happened. They've already, if you start a business after COVID happened, you've assumed the risk. So you're not eligible. That is part of the rules that were put in place when the program was given to us by Congress. So most often it's that. If it's something else, then I would say we would have them work with a small business development center counselor.
Okay. Now, how will this affect many people are now on PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance? How will getting an EIDL affect that at all?
It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Okay, great. So that's good news for many. Assuming that there aren't any technical issues or with the application and everything goes through, what do you see, knowing that we're getting into the holiday season, that might slow things down a bit, but what have you generally seen being that processing time between approval and disbursement?
Really, it depends on the individual. It depends on when you sign the loan closing documents and if your banking information is correct. It takes generally 3 to 5 business days for us to electronically notify the Treasury and kind of book the money for you and then release it once we get the documents. So that part is very easy. The whole thing depends on whether there's some issue with the banking.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to make light of everything you're going through. I know that this has been long and hard, and even if they just put a piece of paper and asked you to sign your name, I mean, stress is high and everything seems so difficult and things are not always easy, but we are trying our best to get everybody the assistance that they need, and sometimes just don't get discouraged. Sometimes the answer is no, but it's because we need additional information. So as they say, try again. And even if we decline you the second time, you do have the right for another appeal. So don't let that discourage you there. And I'm not trying to say that we approve every loan. There are certain businesses that are just not eligible, but to the extent we can, we are trying very hard to provide a resource to help people stay in business during the COVID-19 situation.
And we so appreciate that, the lifelines that you're extending to people. There are many in our industry who really won't survive this without assistance, really will not. I see a lot of people are still looking for clarification as to just what these loans can be used for knowing that they want to be in compliance and are, it's very confusing as to what these monies can actually be allocated for legally. And then that ties into how much of it is seen as forgivable, as that 10,000 that you spoke to about it becoming more like a grant.
Okay, if you look at your loan authorization will only reflect the loan amount. It won't reflect the grant that you got. Okay, so whatever amount is on your loan authorization and the note, that's your economic injury disaster loan, and that is not forgivable. Okay, the only part that you have to worry about is the disbursement you got that was separate, $1,000 per employee. And if you got a PPP loan, then they're going to take whatever money you got, that 1,000 up to 10, they're going to take that money because it is for the same purpose as the PPP loan. That's a duplication of benefits. If you did not, NOT, if you did not get a PPP loan, then you are allowed to keep that $1,000 per employee money, and you will never have to pay it back. That was a forgivable loan or otherwise grant. And the reason I use funky terms is because I'm a public information officer and they make us call things certain things. So I'm not trying to confuse you. Now, as far as what can you use the money for? All right. If I had a business, I would think that I would be paying my accounts payable. I have fixed debts that let's pretend I have the florist shop. So my accounts payable include utilities, quarterly taxes, payroll, the inventory I have, electricity, water, all of those types of things. And then I have to make my monthly payment on the van. And then I have to pay rent or the lease payment. All of those things that you normally pay, every single one of them, that's what you can use the money for. Now, just to be totally clear, what you cannot use the money for. I can't use the money to decide, I have always wanted to have a second shop. I'm going to use some of this money to open a second shop. No. I have always wanted to expand my business space and knock out this wall and make it showroom bigger. No. I want to pay at the end of the year. I want to give gifts to my employees. No, you cannot use this money to give gifts. You cannot use this money to give bonuses. You cannot use this money to start a new business. It is to keep your business in operation. If you keep that focus, what you need the money for, I need to keep my business in operation in the same manner it was before COVID started. If you just think that, then you should not go astray.
Okay.
That's the best description I can provide.
I think that was very clear. I think that was very good. Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to have, if it could be one more question. I have a couple here there are many sole proprietors in our industry who are LLCs. And they are wondering about how they apply as an independent. And they don't have, I know that this is different from the PPP where this is not to pay payroll. So I think that's where the confusion is.
If you are a sole proprietor or if you're an LLC and you pay yourself a salary, that's part of your operating. We do not expect you to starve. That's not the point. The point is that you can't do things that you would not ordinarily do. So if you're an LLC, the name of the business should be formal because you went through the Secretary of State to create the LLC, and your bank account should be in that name. So make sure those things match. And if you have a comma LLC, or if you didn't think to put a comma, or however you structured it, just make sure it's the same. And yeah, absolutely. If you're on salary, do it, go it, but you can't do bonuses. That's different. That's not the same as a salary. So thank you for asking that question.
Wonderful. I want to just know we're getting late into this webinar. Sharon, I know that you had some experiences you wanted to share, and I think that through those sharings we can speak for some of our attendees. You want to take the floor now?
I mean, my experience, we kind of covered it. I mean, my experience was kind of, I applied right away in the beginning, and at the process, when it first started, things changed a lot. So the forms kept changing as I was applying, but it's much more streamlined today. I feel, Kathy, I hope you can say the same on your side, that you feel the SBA processes for the EIDL has been streamlined. I mean, I didn't know, one thing that I learned today that I didn't know is that this EIDL loan, there's no chance of it being ever forgiven. And that's something that, hopefully either it can become a grant if it can't be forgiven, or that there can be something that put in place for our industry. Because I kind of find it crazy that the government's basically told our industry, you're not allowed to work anymore, but here's some money. And guess what? The minute you get that money, we're going to start charging you interest. And guess what? The interest rate we're giving you is 3.75%, but you can go to somebody else right now and get a loan for 1% or 1.2%. But I know that's not Kathy's. Kathy's here to help us and help us get this money. And we're fighting the battle on the other side to get us some relief. So, thank you, Kathy, for your time today.
You're welcome. And when I say never, ever, ever, these are the policies and the legislation right now. Never, ever, ever have we had COVID loans. Never, ever, ever have we had a streamlined application where you just sign up and you don't have to submit any documentation that you're a viable business or anything. We are in a land of never evers in 2020. So, it's not that we want to burden businesses. It's just the avenue, the venue, the agency that they charged with having this program. And the reason the PPP is different primarily is it was Congress's way of immediately trying to take care of payroll. That was the whole gist of it. Everybody was running to unemployment, but we wanted to take care of people and trying to keep them in with the business operations. So time will tell. We don't know. But hopefully, I wish for everybody, to recover from COVID, for their families to be safe and healthy. And, things can change with Congress. We don't know. But right now, I just want you to know what the basic premises are. And, don't be nervous because it's federal funds. Ask questions, keep our toll-free number. And, we are always available to come back if invited or needed and provide you with more information. And I greatly appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Thank you. I know that we're already getting some responses of people who are so grateful for all of your clarifications, because this is really just, we've all been thrown into such a mess and so much confusion. And we're just hoping that this is fruitful for everyone, that it helped to get through the murky waters. And I know that there will be some upcoming changes in the next month or so as things come to a close for this year, and we look forward to hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel for 21. Panelists, any other comments? If there are any last minute questions, please throw them into the Q&A. I'll see if still have Kathy here. Get them out.
Right, I'd just like to say it's so great to see all the participation, all the participants from all over the country. I mean, LEC is in its infancy, and to see this much involvement already, and this is definitely a hot topic for a lot of people all across the country. We're extremely, we are on chartered waters as an industry, as an economy in our whole country, and to be able to, as an association, to be able to muster this together and bring some dynamic information from an amazing individual like Kathy, to take her time out today to talk to us is amazing. So to all the leadership at LEC, mothership, as well as all local leadership at all different LECs, Ronnie, all peers, both known and unknown. I think this is the start of some amazing information that you'll be getting from LEC over the next couple of months and years, as we grow and enhance for the betterment of the live events industry. So
we want to really be a resource for everybody in our industry, everybody, business owners and all those who make it all happen. But thank you so much. I do want to, we will be sending out some follow-up information as well as the recorded webinar to all. And know that the SBA does offer counseling, as Mike is already taken full advantage of. They're there to help you. Kathy has been wonderful, and we thank you again, Kathy, for your time and being so flexible with all of this. We know that there are many out there who are still in need of getting more information. So we will pass on that information and ways to contact you so that they can follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful one. We will, again, forward this information out to you. Take care. Stay safe. Happy holidays.